This is a news on Baktosonova, and let's go through the main headlines. Donald Trump threatens a big hit if Tehran doesn't make deal, adding the war will be over very soon. China's President Xi Jinping welcomes Russian President Vladimir Putin in Beijing at start of high-level talks. And Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 19 people in southern Lebanon amid a fragile ceasefire. The U.S. Senate has advanced a war powers resolution aimed at forcing Donald Trump to end the war in Iran, but unless he receives congressional authorization to continue it. Here is more on that story.
U.S. President Donald Trump has escalated pressure on Iran, warning that the United States could carry out fresh strikes if Tehran refuses to make significant concessions in ongoing negotiations. Trump said he had been close to authorizing a new wave of strikes, but stepped back from the decision. He insisted the conflict would end quickly if a deal is reached, and said oil prices would fall once an agreement is in place.
They end that war very quickly. They want to make a deal so badly. They're tired of this. This should have happened for 47 years. Somebody should have done something about it, and it's going to happen, and it's going to happen fast, and you're going to see oil prices plummet. They're going to come down. There's so much oil out there. They're going to come plummeting down. But even with that, the stock market's at an all-time high.
At a White House briefing, Vice President J.D. Vance said draft agreements continue moving back and forth, but warned the military campaign could resume if diplomacy fails.
Most importantly, who not to call on. We think that we've made a lot of progress. We think the Iranians want to make a deal. The President of the United States has asked us to negotiate in good faith, and that's exactly what we've done. So we're in a pretty good spot here, but there's an option B. And the option B is that we could restart the military campaign to continue to prosecute the case, to continue to try to achieve America's objectives. And we could talk a little bit about what that looks like, but that's not what the president wants, and I don't think it's what the Iranians want either. We have an opportunity here, I think, to reset the relationship that has existed between Iran and the United States for 47 years. That's what the president has asked us to do, and that's what we're going to keep on working at. But it takes two to tango.
In Washington, the U.S. Senate advanced a war powers resolution seeking to limit presidential authority over military operations in Iran. In a narrow procedural vote, 4 Republicans joined Democrats, marking the first time it has moved forward after several failed attempts. The resolution would require congressional approval to continue military action, but it still faces major hurdles in the House and would need a 2/3 majority to survive a presidential veto. The White House says the president's actions are legal as tensions continue between US, Israeli forces and Iran. On the ground, Iran continues to restrict shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, a vital global energy route, while US forces maintain pressure through naval deployments near Iranian waters. Iranian officials have rejected US demands, calling them excessive, and say they will continue to assert their rights over the strategic waterway. The situation remains highly tense, with diplomatic efforts continuing but no clear breakthrough between Washington and Tehran.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is in Beijing today for talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping, and one that comes just days after U.S. President Donald Trump was also received in the capital. Mahnur Maktoum has more from Beijing.
Beijing is once again at the center of global diplomacy. Russian President Vladimir Putin touched down in the Chinese capital last night for high-level talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The two leaders met on Wednesday outside the Parade Hall of the People, where Xi welcomed Putin with a handshake on a red carpet as a military band played both nations' national anthems. Once inside, Putin struck a positive note, saying that despite what he called unfavorable external factors, cooperation between the two countries was showing strong positive momentum. Xi praised what he described as an unyielding relationship between China and Russia, saying that the two sides had deepened political trust and strategic coordination through, in his words, trials and tribulations.
China will continue to advance the building of a strong nation and the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation through Chinese-style modernization, and will unswervingly expand high-level opening up, sharing development opportunities with Russia and other countries around the world to jointly create a better future for mankind.
The backdrop to all of this is a Russia that has grown increasingly dependent on China since Western sanctions over Ukraine tightened. Beijing, however, continues its partnership with Moscow as part of a push for what it calls a multipolar world order. Chinese state media referred to Putin as Xi's Lao Pangyo, which translates to old friend, a reminder that the two men have now met more than 40 times over the past decade, forging one of the most consequential bilateral relationships in the world today.
I would like to point out that Russia and China actively cooperate in the energy sector. Our country is one of the largest exporters of oil, natural gas, including liquefied gas, and coal to China. We are, of course, ready to continue to reliably ensure uninterrupted supplies of all these fuels to the rapidly growing Chinese market.
High on the agenda is the long-delayed Power of Siberia 2 gas pipeline, a project that would dramatically deepen Russia's energy ties with China, along with a series of cooperation agreements expected to be signed during the visit. This is Putin's 25th visit to China, and it comes just days after US President Donald Trump was also received here in Beijing, a fact that has not gone unnoticed. Manu Makhdoom, A News, Beijing.
Putin's visit to China has put relations with Beijing in focus. The visit is also drawing attention to the economic ties behind the wider partnership.
The 10th China-Russia Expo is underway in Harbin, bringing together companies, buyers and officials from both countries. Organizers say this year's event features more than 500 new products and over 800 projects, covering areas from intelligent equipment and AI to agriculture and cultural goods. Nearly 300 Russian companies are taking part, while Chinese manufacturers are presenting products for potential overseas markets.
We brought 32 exhibits covering ploughing, planting, management, harvesting and transportation. We hope to not only demonstrate the strength of Jiamusi manufacturing, but also to secure more overseas orders, turning a wonderful exhibition into tangible results.
Russia's exhibition area includes food processing, textiles, crafts and tourism products, while the expo also hosts trade events aimed at connecting businesses from both sides.
We brought over 100 leading Russian companies to Harbin. We feel a very warm welcome here. This time, I want to introduce Russian culture and cultural tourism products to Chinese consumers.
The expo runs until 21st of May, with March trade data showing growth in Chinese exports to Russia, led by cars, broadcasting equipment and computers, while imports from Russia were driven mainly by crude petroleum, copper ore and refined petroleum.
Tensions between Russia and NATO countries have intensified after Moscow accused Ukraine of planning drone operations from Baltic territory, a claim firmly rejected by Latvia, Ukraine and the United States. The remarks made at the UN Security Council meeting triggered sharp responses, with Western diplomats warning against threats directed at alliance members.
According to the information we received in Russia, Kyiv has no plans to limit itself to the use of the air corridors provided by the Baltic countries. Drones are also planned for launch from these countries' territories. Zelensky convinced Latvia to agree to the operation, stressing that identifying the exact launch site will be impossible. Drone forces have already been sent to Latvia. They are deployed at the Latvian military bases in Adazi, Celia, Lielvārde, Daugavpils and Jēkabpils. I would like to draw attention to all of those who are helping Kyiv and tell them that contemporary intelligence means as such that we can clearly identify drone launch sites. Furthermore, Data can be obtained by studying drone wreckage when Zelensky made an attempt to attack the Russian president's residence in December. And yes, to the permanent representative of Latvia, the foreign intelligence of Russia did say that the coordinates of decision-making centers in Latvia are well known, and membership in NATO will not protect you from retaliation, even if you are a member of NATO.
I will just repeat: lies and aggressive disinformation and threats are a sign of despair and weakness. And we have seen similar lies addressed against other members of this council in the previous meetings. So I'm very honored to have the attention drawn to my country.
We reject all the fairy tales that we just heard, also about some Ukrainian soldiers in Latvia. Just stop lying.
Russia has begun 3 days of nuclear forces drills involving missile units, fleets and long-range aviation across several commands. The Defense Ministry said the exercises run from May 19th to 21st and will include ballistic and cruise missile launches. They are designed to rehearse the preparation and use of nuclear forces in the event of aggression. Moscow says 64,000 personnel and more than 7,000 pieces of military equipment are involved, including missile launchers, aircraft, ships and submarines. Estonia says a NATO fighter jet shot down a drone that entered its airspace, with officials reporting no damage or casualties. The Romanian F-16 fired a missile after the aircraft was assessed as a potential threat, with debris landing in a remote area. Estonian authorities said the drone was likely Ukrainian, but may have been diverted by Russian electronic jamming during attacks on Russia. Ukraine denied any intention to violate NATO airspace and blamed Moscow for redirecting its drones. Russia has not responded. Tensions remain high along the Lebanon-Israel border despite an extended U.S.-brokered ceasefire. Lebanese health officials say Israeli airstrikes killed at least 19 people on Tuesday, while Israel says it's targeting Hezbollah infrastructure in southern Lebanon.
Israeli airstrikes across southern Lebanon killed at least 19 people on Tuesday, including women and children, according to Lebanon's health ministry. The attacks came despite a fragile US-brokered ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah remaining in effect. The deadliest strike targeted a house in the town of Deir Kanun al-Nar in the Tyre district, killing 10 people, among them 3 children and 3 women. Several others were wounded as rescue teams searched through the rubble. Additional airstrikes elsewhere in southern Lebanon killed 9 more people and injured dozens. The Israeli military said it had struck more than 25 Hezbollah-linked sites in southern Lebanon over the past 24 hours, but did not immediately comment on the reported civilian casualties. Lebanon's health ministry says more than 3,000 people have been killed and over 9,000 wounded since the conflict resumed, while more than 1 million people have been displaced across the country. Hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah reignited on March 2nd after Hezbollah launched rockets toward Israel following US-Israeli strikes on Iran. Since then, cross-border violence has continued almost daily, despite ongoing ceasefire efforts led by Washington. Meanwhile, the Israeli military said 1 soldier was killed during operations in southern Lebanon, bringing the number of Israeli troops killed in the conflict to 21. Hezbollah said its fighters clashed with Israeli forces near the border and claimed to have destroyed an Israeli tank.
The World Health Organization says it sent 4.7 tons of essential medical supplies to the Democratic Republic of the Congo on Monday. This shipment comes after the United Nations declared the Ebola outbreak a public health emergency of international concern due to the high risk of the disease spreading beyond the country's borders. The outbreak is suspected to have killed around 136 people in recent weeks, with 8 cases confirmed through laboratory testing and over 200 suspected cases reported in the eastern province of Ituri. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk welcomed Hungary's new Prime Minister Peter Magyar to Warsaw. Magyar was greeted with a military ceremony during the second day of his first official foreign visit since taking office. The two-day visit, which also includes stops in Kharkiv and Gdansk, is being seen as a reset in ties after years of strained relations under former Hungarian leader Viktor Orban. Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss the growing China-Russia strategic partnership, rising NATO tensions, and the geopolitical stakes surrounding the Ukraine war and Middle East crisis. Stay tuned.
Moi, Luis Moreno Campo, déclare solennellement.
We've seen remarkable developments between Baku and Yerevan.
We are against all of this kind of peace.
Russia does not want Pashinyan to win. Russia wants perpetual conflict.
A region that's in conflict or in tension is better for their ability to play a role.
Russian
oligarchs are less about money and more about political influence.
Russia can make its own interventions through online postings.
Que je remplirai mes devoirs et exercerai mes attributions de procureur de la Cour pénale internationale.
Money in politics everywhere is corrupting influence, but when it becomes weaponized by a foreign power.
The main thing we have money. Too much resources, too much money.
The main topic is to change Pashinyan.
They have both on Big Boss. Big Boss which is in Russia.
L'impartialité et en toute conscience.
We are for pressuring Pashinyan. We are organizing rallies on the streets.
Et que je respecterai le caractère confidentiel des enquêtes.
They are election time. No, and election time is everything binary.
Nosotros pedimos que remuevan a Pashinyan.
Welcome back to A News. We continue with our top story for discussion. As global tensions deepen, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin have met in Beijing to reinforce the strategic partnership amid the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. Xi Jinping warned against renewed military action in the region, calling for an immediate ceasefire and negotiations, while Moscow simultaneously warned that the risk of a direct clash between Russia and NATO is rising. The summit comes as Russia grows increasingly dependent on China economically and diplomatically under Western sanctions, with major discussions also focused on energy cooperation, including the Power of Siberia 2 gas pipeline project. To discuss the growing China-Russia alignment, the wider geopolitical implications and rising tensions between Moscow and NATO, we're joined by Klaus Jürgens, political analyst with Economy First Limited, speaking to us from London. Mr. Jürgens, welcome to the program and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Mr. Jürgens, how significant is this Xi-Putin meeting at a time of simultaneous crises in Ukraine and the Middle East? And also, Xi Jinping called renewed war in the Middle East unacceptable. Is China trying to position itself as a global mediator?
Well, this is a very good question. Now, I actually would say that in a very polarized world, same like the European Union, including NATO and other international bodies, of course, a superpower as China, such as China, is trying to figure out what is our own position in this new geopolitical framework. And many over the decades have said, yes, China is either a friend or a foe. We don't really know how to handle it. And now everything is changing all of a sudden because people are realizing this old black and white paradigm doesn't work anymore. There is a new geopolitical paradigm coming our way, and I would not be surprised if this Russia-China renewed axis could actually help to bring stability and hopefully help to end our big conflicts around the world. I'm not only mentioning the Middle East and Ukraine, but there are others. And yes, should superpowers take care of everything by themselves? Of course not. There are many fine other nations, and your own fine nation is a very good example. But we must live with the fact that for the time being, we still have the United States, we have Russia, and we have China, and we somehow have to deal with it. Yes, I think China wants to become a kind of mediating power. I fully agree with you.
Mr. Jürgens, Russia says its relationship with China is at an unprecedented high. Is this now a full strategic alliance in practice?
We can argue. Of course, even President Putin has to play to his own gallery back home, and an unprecedented high sounds a little bit like playing to the domestic electorate, much more so than to a foreign audience. It is perhaps not unprecedented because, if I'm not wrong, only on Saturday, after President Donald Trump left China, had it been announced that President Vladimir Putin is soon arriving in Beijing, and a few days later. Now, of course, this visit was planned meticulously for weeks, if not months, ahead of time. No president just steps onto a plane and says, hey, tomorrow I will arrive in Beijing. Of course not. So an unprecedented high, I would say, is slightly overdoing it. From President Putin's perspective, it might be important to say Russia is still on the agenda, Russia is back, but I do not see an unprecedented high as of yet.
Mr. Jürgens, in your view, how important is China for Russia's economic survival under Western sanctions?
Absolutely, of absolute importance. We remember the sanctions imposed on Russia, and I'm very outspoken about sanctions, and we featured this topic about sanctions in a different context, talking about Iran a short while ago. Sanctions sound good on paper. Sanctions are again playing to the gallery. You want to appease and please your domestic electorate to make sure we are the strong guys, but who is suffering at the end of the day? The ordinary citizen. Goods are getting more expensive. Energy is getting more expensive. Traveling all but becomes an impossibility due to expensive ticket prices. So Russia will actually stay as an energy supplier for China, and China will be a very, very welcome buyer. And the annual trade volume, if I may, not too much number crunching, short of time, of course, but the annual trade volume, if I'm not wrong, is already just above $200 billion between Russia and China. And there is still room at the top, so to speak. But energy is the key, and Russia is doing a very clever move. And maybe we have time to talk about the new pipeline as well.
So Moscow warned about the growing risk of a direct NATO-Russia clash. How seriously should the international community take that warning?
Well, I think the international community should realize that Russia, and we have to talk about NATO enlargement towards the east as well. I'm sorry to have so many topics today on my plate, but if you would be the president of Russia and you would see NATO expanding eastwards, and you would have a Baltic Sea situation, and you would have crisis all around the world, and Middle East, Ukraine, and what have you. Now, of course, any nation state must somehow find its way And one former German chancellor once famously said, with all his insights, he said, there will never be a world without Russia. At least he would not know one. And this, I think, is many people are worried. Will there be conflict? Will there be aggression? No. I think it is 2 or 3 years ago. Is Russia going to invade the Swedish island of Gotland? Of course not. Why would Russia invade by now a NATO member state? Of course not. But Russia at the same time does not want to be invaded either by any NATO state. So diplomacy is exactly what is needed now. Diplomacy, meeting, and another German chancellor once said 100 hours of negotiations are better instead of sending one bomb. And I truly believe in this, that now we have China, Russia and America talking, and the European Union must actually realize the ball perhaps is in their court as well. And no need for aggression, but diplomacy. But I don't see any serious risk, to be honest, no.
Mr. Jürgens, again, I want to return to China-Russia ties. The United States has long hoped to weaken Russia-China ties. Has that strategy effectively failed?
Yes, focusing on China and then Russia, that is our program. Yes, of course. I think what Donald Trump was hoping for and his administration, that China and Russia are no longer best friends or will never be best friends, so to speak. But he overlooked a small little detail. We are now, or they are now celebrating 25 years of the Accord of Good Neighborly Relations. And Vladimir Putin's visit to China coincides with this 25th anniversary. So this is something President Trump perhaps should understand. There are ups and downs in bilateral relations. He knows, of course, regarding his own country. But now there were ups and downs between China and Russia as well, between Moscow and Beijing. Now, arriving in Beijing on the 25th anniversary of this very important treaty, I think is indeed a milestone in bilateral relations, but coming back to your initial question, not yet the unprecedented high, but definitely a milestone, yes. And I think President Trump somehow miscalculated the neighborly relations, so to speak, between China and Russia.
Klaus Jürgens, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your insights. We truly appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks. After the break, we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region.
Hello and welcome to Primetime. What a show we've got lined up for you today. In a complex world, clarity is power. Two hours live, diplomacy dissected in a spin-free environment. That's Prime Time with me, Guy Schoen, weekdays on A News.
Welcome back to news, and now we turn to our regional stories. A 5.6 magnitude earthquake struck the Turkey-Syria border region, according to the European Mediterranean Seismological Center. Turkey's Disaster and Emergency Management Authority reported that the earthquake hit the Malatya province at 9 a.m. local time. The tremor was felt across several provinces in southern Turkey, including Adana, Gaziantep, Şanlıurfa, as residents reported shaking near the border region. There were no immediate reports of damage, but schools being evacuated in affected areas. Authorities continued assessing the situation in affected areas. One of Turkey's largest military exercises is set to wrap up on Thursday. The FS 2026 War Games have brought together more than 10,000 military personnel from Turkey, its NATO allies and partner countries, including Azerbaijan. Here are the details.
The weeks-long FS 2026 joint military exercises are now entering their final stage in western Turkey. The drills, held in Turkey's Aegean region, represent one of the Turkish military's largest combined live-fire exercises. The wide-ranging war games are designed to test coordination between land, air, naval, special forces, and other military units in complex operational scenarios. More than 10,000 military personnel have taken part, including Turkish troops, foreign military units, and observers from more than 40 countries. Forces from several of Turkey's NATO allies have participated in the drills, including Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and the United States. FS 2026 has also included military contingents from Turkey's close partners, including Azerbaijan, Pakistan, and Malaysia. Azerbaijan's participation is especially notable given the close defense relationship between Ankara and Baku. The two countries have expanded military cooperation in recent years, including joint training and defense industrial cooperation under the broader framework of a bilateral strategic alliance. For Turkey, FS 2026 is both a readiness exercise and a diplomatic platform. It allows the Turkish armed forces to demonstrate their operational capabilities while also enhancing interoperability with allies and partner militaries. The live-fire phase of the exercises involved several scenarios, including amphibious operations, air assaults, special forces missions, and coordinated fire support. The drills also give Turkey a chance to showcase its burgeoning defense industry, including domestically produced systems and unmanned platforms. So as FS 2026 wraps up, the message is clear. Turkey is presenting itself as a capable military actor, an important NATO ally, and a key defense partner across multiple regions. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
Baku is hosting an international conference focused on youth engagement in urban development during decolonization, held alongside the 13th UN World Urban Forum. The event brings together participants from 22 countries and launches the Global Thou's Youth Platform. Our correspondent Gülçin Kocaelieva reports.
A major international conference on the role of youth in urban development during decolonization processes is taking place in Baku as part of the 13th session of the UN World Urban Forum. The event is being organized by the Baku Initiative Group and marks the first international gathering of the newly established Global South Youth Platform, bringing together young representatives from 22 countries across different regions. For the first time, the UN Youth Office is also being represented at the event.
I see that the traces of colonialism still exist in three things. First of all, it exists in how the buildings are being structured, the materials themselves, and third of all, the culture. So the designs of the building, they no longer resemble what the people are at right now. Second of all, the materials used are all westernized. I do not think that most of the countries now use the same materials that the land itself has. And third of all, the culture. People still look up to the European style of buildings, which is not necessarily close or efficient or from an aesthetic point of view similar to our land and our culture.
Participants include young researchers, international law and public health experts, civil society representatives, youth organization leaders and university students from both current and former colonial territories. The organizers say the platform aims to amplify youth voices from global south and place issues such as structural inequality, discrimination and urban marginalization more firmly on the international agenda.
The
consequences of colonialism are not limited to politics and economics alone. These impacts affect different aspects of people's lives in different sectors, including environmental issues and urban development. Colonial policies have caused serious environmental damage in colonies, and there are also major consequences in the context of urban planning.
Discussions are focusing on the ongoing impacts of colonial and neo-colonial systems on urban development, as well as efforts to strengthen cooperation among youth networks and transform international solidarity into practical results-oriented initiatives. Gülşah Hocalayeva, Avaz Hacıyev, A News.
At World Urban Forum 13 in Baku, experts gathered for the dialogue Housing as a Frontline Climate Solution to explore the growing connection between housing and climate action. The discussion focused on how homes and urban development can strengthen resilience in the face of climate risks while remaining affordable and inclusive. Participants also looked at examples of cities and countries already advancing low carbon and climate-resilient housing solutions. Several experts shared their perspectives on what needs to change to turn housing from a source of climate vulnerability into a driver of more resilient communities.
This session was really particular in the sense that it created the link between climate issues and housing issues and how interconnected they are. So we spoke about the effect, for instance, of floods and all the kind of issues that we've been seeing more and more of how our climate is changing and how this is actually affecting the communities that need to be housed, because obviously, with certain climate changes, you have communities that cannot live anymore where they are. So what do we do with those? How do we house them?
I'm sorry, I wouldn't take very long. Whenever you want to stop.
Or living condition there is...
Here I am representing the EBRD Green Cities program. So this is a program that spans EBRD's countries, and it was set up in 2016 in the wake of the landmark Paris Agreement to support cities to become more green and sustainable. So far, the program, we have 60 cities across the Banks region. We have a very active green city here in Azerbaijan, and that is Ganja. And we really appreciate the collaboration that we are having with that city, which the program has allowed us to invest there.
From innovative financing models to real-world smart city projects, the fourth day of the World Urban Forum 13 spotlights how collaboration is shaping the future of urban development in Azerbaijan and beyond. Our Nuray Mustafa has more from the venue.
Today's WEF 13 program focused primarily on strengthening cooperation between the public and private sectors. Discussion centered on smart and sustainable urban development projects, investment opportunities, and urban innovation. Alongside government institutions, business and property development companies actively participated in the sessions, exploring new opportunities for partnership and collaboration. As part of the forum, the session titled Delivering Smart and Sustainable Urban Projects in Azerbaijan highlighted practical examples for how Azerbaijan is implementing smart and sustainable urban development projects. The session explored the planning, financing and delivery of selected initiatives, as well as practical lessons they offer for cities, investors and urban development professionals.
One of the key things that was passed over to us was to create a sustainable resettlement and whatever is behind it. And that's why the great Return program was established, and according to that Great Return program, we started to implement the smart cities and smart village concepts. So today we are participating in the WUF 13. One of the national urban forums was already gathered in Zengilan, as well as in Agdam, and now the World Urban Forum is happening here in Baku, and we are proud to participate here because we've done quite a lot of things in terms of in urban perspective, and this is the time where we like to share our experience with a wider audience.
Key topics included project design and implementation in smart urban development, public-private sector cooperation, investment facilitation, financing mechanisms, and approaches to risk management. Participants exchanged views on major challenges, success factors, and practical solutions based on real project experience. Overall, WEF 13 continues to serve as an international platform for constructive dialogue, knowledge sharing, and the promotion of cooperation among key stakeholders. Nuray Mustafa, Natik Mammadov for A News.
Staying on the forum, a joint event called the D8 High-Level Dialogue on Energy and Urban Planning. Azerbaijani Energy Minister Parviz Shahbazov said cities consume nearly 70% of global energy and stressed the growing importance of green and smart cities for D8 countries. He noted that Baku's expansion of its green energy projects with 12 new solar and wind power plants set to begin operating next year. The event also highlighted green energy zone projects in Karabakh and East Zangezur, where smart village and smart city initiatives are underway.
And the question that
Turning to the climate resilient cities and communities across the Caspian region, experts came together for talks on the future of urban development. Speakers focused on climate resilience, financing and regional partnerships, highlighting ways to support sustainable and people-centered cities. Several experts also shared their perspectives on the role of cooperation and innovation in building stronger communities.
In fact, an adaptation fund project that looks at strengthening the resilience of communities, strengthening biodiversity, livelihoods, but also looking at infrastructure pilot projects that can go to scale across the whole country and the wider region. So I have been working actually with the colleagues from UNEP, the Environmental Programme, and the International Organization of Migration on developing such a project for the Caspian Sea shore, but we are also aiming to actually use the experiences that we will be having here in Azerbaijan to go to scale in Kazakhstan and in Turkmenistan.
The first point is some of the basic infrastructure needs to be financed by the public sector. Let's say, for example, like roads, urban flood management systems, those do not generate revenue. But once those infrastructure is in place, some other infrastructure, let's say water supply systems, social housing, or wastewater systems, if you properly structure the projects, then it can be pursued for the public-private partnership arrangement. So once that enabling framework is in place, then in the future, the more private capital can come in to the climate resilient urban infrastructure.
The project that we're working here is enabled by the Adaptation Fund, which has provided to Azerbaijan $10 million to implement the project around the climate resilience in the country. So we are envisaging, for instance, a corridor development project here in Baku to create public space, but also in the meanwhile to create a buffer area to better deal with emergencies such as the urban flooding that we have witnessed. So eventually the ambition is to bring this project to another level and inspire other players in the region of the Caspian Sea so that more countries can join this effort of creating climate resilience around the Caspian region.
Kyrgyzstan has suspended the operations of 50 companies in what authorities describe as an effort to tackle businesses facing high sanctions risks. The move comes as a Central Asian country faces growing pressure from Western partners over concerns it may be helping Russia bypass sanctions. Our correspondent reports.
Kyrgyzstan is stepping up control over businesses facing high sanctions risks as the country comes under growing pressure from the West. Authorities in Bishkek have suspended the operations of 50 locally registered companies in what officials describe as the first move of its kind. The Justice Ministry says the decision is part of a new system designed to identify high-risk business activity. The names of the companies have not been disclosed, and the sectors involved have also not been revealed. Russia is also not mentioned directly in the official statement. The decision comes as Kyrgyzstan faces increasing questions over allegations that local companies and banks may be helping Russia bypass sanctions imposed over the war in Ukraine. In recent years, concerns over sanctions evasion through Kyrgyz businesses and financial institutions have emerged repeatedly. Pressure on Bishkek increased after the European Union included Kyrgyz lenders Kermet Bank and Capital Bank in its 20th package of sanctions against Russia. Brussels also restricted certain exports to Kyrgyzstan, citing concerns that some goods could eventually reach the Russian market. Kyrgyz authorities insist the country is acting in line with international law and its legal obligations. At the same time, officials have voiced concern over unilateral restrictive measures against third countries. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
Turkmenistan is considering joining a major regional energy project involving the construction of a power cable under the Caspian Sea to export electricity to Azerbaijan and potentially onward to other international markets. A News' Sevil Rajapova has the details.
Turkmenistan is studying the possibility of exporting electricity through a sub-sea cable across the Caspian Sea. The announcement was made by Turkmen and Negro representative Abdullah Jalilov on the sidelines of the World Urban Forum. According to officials, Turkmenistan is currently constructing a 1,574 megawatt combined cycle power plant in Turkmenbashi, which could become the main source of electricity generation for future exports. Jalilov said the proposed cable would allow Turkmenistan to transmit electricity to Azerbaijan and potentially onward to other countries through regional energy networks. He noted that the issue is regularly discussed during intergovernmental meetings between Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan, although no final agreement has yet been reached. Officials say Azerbaijan could play a key transit role in the project, helping deliver Turkmen electricity to wider regional and international markets. According to Turkmen and Negro, the initiative could become economically beneficial for all participating sides, while strengthening regional energy connectivity across the Caspian region. It is Sevil Rajapova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss Azerbaijan's green energy ambitions and the upcoming D8 energy ministers meeting in Baku. See you shortly.
As America sleeps, Europe is waking, and the East has begun its day. A News is right here at the center, bringing you the latest stories as they break. I'm Nadia Jani, here with you each weekday morning to share latest world news and the stories shaping our region. Across all platforms and wherever you get your news, we explore the context behind the big headlines. Live from Baku, I bring you a diverse mix of regional and international news, sport and politics for you, an audience that wants a bit more. So join me Monday to Friday for the latest headlines, expert analysis and live updates from around the world. Around the globe and live from Baku, this is Daybreak here on A News.
Welcome back to A News. We now shift our focus to a regional story for discussion. Azerbaijan is accelerating its green energy ambitions as Baku prepares to host the first ever meeting of energy ministers from the developing 8 or D8 member states. The meeting is expected to unveil the D8 Climate and Energy Center headquartered in Azerbaijan at a time when the country is expanding renewable energy projects and promoting Karabakh and East Zangezur as green energy zones. Azerbaijan aims to significantly increase renewable energy capacity by 2030 as part of its broader climate and energy transition strategy. And now joining us to discuss this is Özgür Güven, sustainability and energy expert who speaks to us from Ankara, Turkey. Mr. Güven, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Güven, how significant is Azerbaijan hosting the first ever D8 energy ministers meeting?
The last few years, Azerbaijan is boosting up, climbing up the stairs actually very rapidly. First, COP29, I think it was the first step of Azerbaijan, bold step of Azerbaijan. And after this, I think this is a great initiative. It was last week, the announcement of in energy field, Azerbaijan is becoming a more world player, like a global player, and which is I congratulate them. We need Azerbaijan, our brother country, to do these moves. Just last week, they had also agreed with Uzbekistan to bring Uzbeki energy resources towards Europe. So I think this is Azerbaijan basically is on the right steps, right, moving forward.
Mr. Güven, what strategic role could the new D8 Climate and Energy Center in Baku play for member states?
If we go back, how D8 was established, it was, I believe, 1997. Late Erbakan, Professor Erbakan, he was the prime minister back then, who has a lot of bold moves in our history for several decades, and I think it was his initiative to bring progressing Muslim nations around a table. I think this was the first step to establish D8 in '97, and since I think this is one of the few bold steps in an advancement for progress for D8 countries. In energy, I am following sustainability, so I think energy is one of two major points in this, like food security and energy security, and the 8 countries definitely will have more participation because most of these countries have either the resources or they are en route from the resources towards the Western countries or in some of our members towards the Eastern power country.
Mr. Güven, Azerbaijan is promoting Karabakh and East Zangezur as green energy zones. How ambitious is this project?
I think this is reality. Azerbaijan is doing the right thing. I have first listened to it in COP29. By then, maybe it was called ambitious project, but now it's very feasible, it's doable, and bringing sustainable energy resources towards the countries who needs these resources. I think this is the right step, and part of the middle corridor, this is another step to include to the middle corridor as well. And as far as I know, as far as I remember, the region has almost 3 gigawatts of potential. Technically, I believe it's more than 10 gigawatts of potential, but economically, maybe it's around 2.5 or 3 gigawatts of potential of renewable energy already with the government. I think private investors also, private companies also will participate in it.
Mr. Güven, how might the D8 platform contribute to climate resilience and sustainable urban development?
This what we speak now is actually a bold move towards that goal. And D8 members of D8 countries, most of it are, as I said, has huge potential for sustainable energy they are already keen on growing their sustainable energy resources, and D8 can easily be an alternative for the G8 when it comes to sustainable energy production capacity, because G8 is already on a certain level. They need more energy than anyone else, and D8 can easily provide the sustainable fuels that the G8 needs.
Özgür Güven, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for your valuable insights and for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. This concludes our news update for the hour. Thank you for your time and stay with us for more updates.